I've got two ideas. One is a more traditional business and one's a bit more kind of out there, deep tech.
The idea I actually heard on a recent MSM podcast where there's a business out of the US called BodySpec.
I called my AI SaaS tool recommender. It is to solve my own itch, and I find myself doing this anyway, and I would be willing to pay for it.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the $1 Million Ideas podcast. Today is a special episode because other than Ken and myself, we have Matt Sean joining us, who is a serial entrepreneur and is going to be sharing 2 ideas with us. I think the feedback that we've got over the last couple of episodes has been great. So thanks for sending all of that through. I think the core was to keep the talking about the idea specifics to a minimum in the pitch so that we could have more back and forth. And so that's something that we're going to try to do today and not focus as much on all the mechanics of the pitch and then take it from there. So with that, we'll continue to make small tweaks and hopefully we'll land on a format that works for everyone. And that's the goal today. So I just want to welcome both Ken and Matt to the podcast. How are you guys doing?
Oh, great, Usman. Thanks for having me on.
All right. So before we get started, Matt, I was curious, do you store ideas on your phone or in a notes app? Because this is something that I've been really curious about as to how people are storing the ideas that they get. Or is it just random?
Yeah, I think that they come randomly. And in a lot of cases, especially in this period right now where I'm trying to kind of identify what's the next area that I want to invest in and how much AI is stimulating me. In a lot of cases, I'll just jump in and try to flesh out a landing page. But for bigger ideas that, require, more in-depth effort, I'm a big Trello user. Ken knows this. I've used it forever. So I have a Kanban for pretty much every aspect of my life. And that's where I store business concepts, business ideas.
What's cool. That should be another showdown. Ken's ClickUp versus Matt's Trello sort of productivity hacks.
I'm still surprised because Matt and I were both using ClickUp and branded in 21. And that's when I became a diehard. But Matt, I guess, didn't. It didn't have the same effect.
Right. Yeah, I like the simplicity with small teams. As you get bigger, then I think ClickUp certainly makes sense. But there's something beautiful about dragging and dropping a Kanban.
Right. Yeah, we spoke about this in, I think, the last episode where Ken shared a no-frills ClickUp idea. And I thought that's actually needed because most of these SaaS tools are getting too bloated now anyways. All right, cool. Getting started. So let's dive in. Matt, you want to share the first idea with us? And then we'll get started from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got 2 ideas. One is a more traditional business and one's a bit more kind of out there, deep tech. And I'll start with the one that's a bit more kind of VC path, deep tech. And it's what I call Take Me There. So the concept of Take Me There came out about a week ago. I was having a conversation with my brother who's a history major, loves history, and he completed an Ancestry.com. I don't know if you're familiar with Ancestry.com, but you can basically see your lineage and your family history. And we got to talking about some family members in 1840s Germany, and I couldn't rationalize or really think about, what their life was like without Googling. So I jumped into Google and I looked for the town name in that period of time, and it's a lot of work. It's really a lot of work to try to put yourself into that experience. So I think from a future level, what Take Me There is, it's basically a platform that allows users to very simply better experience and interact with history. I think that, the TAM's massive. And with all of these advancements in AI, there's just opportunity that's, I think, never been there before to create immersive video, audio, text content that improves people's interactions with history.
Right. Oh, that's cool. Do you imagine something closer to like you go to museums and there's all of these artifacts? They usually give you something to listen to along the way so that there's more context. Do you imagine something like VR and something like that, like meshed together?
Yeah, I think there's, there needs to be obviously like an analysis of everything that's available, and you have to make sure that you're selling a product that has good gross margins. So in state, of course, would be AR, VR, something along those lines. But I think there's even a way to up level the experience by just introducing kind of like slideshows, nice slideshows of images and text and 5-second videos. Maybe it could evolve into 2-minute videos, 3-minute videos, things like that. But it really depends on the cost of the compute and kind of how the unit economics goes.
Well, one thought that popped into my head as soon as you said it is like, I remember when Sora first came out, there was a lot of hype. It was like 6 months back, and they had this video where it was like, show me from like an aerial view what the Wild West looked like. And it was pretty amazing, but I'm sure it's really expensive. But I think this is one of those problems where like, if you get a little traction now, like the technology is only going to improve and you're going to have some really like engaging stuff in a couple of years.
And like you said, like the number of people who are very much into history, read all the books, and can experience something like for real, like going back to periods where they have interest, then I think like that would be awesome. Like per experience, I think of it like movies or something like that. Like you experience it and then you make it once, and then you can probably just reuse. So this is like the idea of just make once and sell many times. So I like it for that reason, because then, like I said, on your gross margin side, it's pretty much like a movie or something that you created once and then you can reuse a lot of times.
One concern I had was when I think about like, I like thinking about the GTM side, and I know Matt a bit, but like this sounds to me like something like you want the kind of history buffs to pay for. And is that like a market that you understand and how to tap them?
I think for me, no. This isn't entirely an idea for me. It's something I'd love to see in the world. I think there's ways around it for people that don't have history backgrounds. I mean, for like an MVP, you could almost, pair 5 historians with 5 creative technologists, using certain tooling and give parameters around what works. You could do Angkor Wat temples, for one, ancient Egypt at one time, recreating Ali Fraser to in another one, or something like that, and see what happens, and just speak to the individual niches and the audiences, release it to the people that are interested in that, and see if it takes off from there.
Yeah. When you say that, like it reminded me of this Netflix special where it was like when they found the guys that are in the cave that were like buried for thousands of years, and they found it like 30, 40 years ago. But like the documentary was really good. And I can just imagine like you're almost at the point where like those things, on the fly, and it really kind of takes you back there.
There's a ton of little verticals inside of it, sports teams. Maybe there would be a scenario of putting together like the 10 most iconic events in the history of the St. Louis Cardinals or something like that. They can release that on social, or just, piggyback on anyone that has an existing audience. Even a lot of towns and municipalities, there's a Facebook group in this tiny town that I grew up in, Central Illinois, and it's got over 1,000 members, and they're just, sharing clippings of newspapers from, a bygone era. I think there's probably an opportunity to build with really passionate people with this product.
Yeah, I like that angle a lot. I like that angle of, hey, can you create shareable content that then resonates to other people's audiences, and therefore like they're inclined to kind of like show your technology to their audience. That's a good angle.
All right. On to idea number 2 now. So I'm going to share an idea. The idea I actually heard on a recent MFM podcast, where there's a business out of the US called Body Spec, which is doing a couple of $1 million a year. And so here's the business. I'm calling the business DEXA to go. So the core question is, how do you know whether you're making progress at the gym? And this is one of those questions that pretty much anyone who goes to the gym regularly wants to figure out. And the only way to figure out whether you're adding muscle mass to your body is to do these DEXA scans. Historically, DEXA scans have been expensive. You have to go to a hospital or a clinic to get them done. And the twist in the idea was that my belief was that these machines are pretty expensive. But what I learned was that you can actually buy these new machines for $50,000 and you can actually get used machines for as low as $15,000. And so what this company has essentially done is that they've kitted out vans with the machine in the van, and they end up going to gyms or paddle courts or anywhere where people are interested in getting DEXA scans done. And instead of paying like $350 for a DEXA scan US, you you pay like $50 for a DEXA scan. And the deal with DEXA scans is that when you are working out, you tend to get them, whether that be quarterly, whether that be half yearly. So there's a recurring sort of like part on it. I thought the idea was fascinating. When I digged into the numbers, they make a lot of sense. And this company in the US has sort of like scaled into 9 cities and now has something like nearly 200 vehicles. 2 Harvard MBAs are running this. And so I thought it was so cool because the return on your investment comes back nearly in 6 to 7 months, and then you're just profiting from there. This company has been working since 2013. So the idea would be to launch it in a new sort of like city. And I thought Dubai would be absolutely ripe for this because there is a very strong gym going culture over here. And DEXA scans are very expensive at the moment. So that's the idea. I'd be curious to hear what you guys think. Have you guys got a DEXA scan done before?
I haven't, but I also haven't been to the gym in over 4 years. So I'm not a good example.
Not my target market. But
I haven't. This is actually the first time that I've heard of this. But I like overall, I really love the idea of having an upfront capex investment that you can finance with some sort of note, and then get recurring revenue off of it. What's the cost of one of these machines?
So it costs $50K for a brand new machine. So if you want to kit out a van and the machine, it's like $20K for the van and stuff like that, $50K for the machine. If you buy brand new, you could get used machines for $30K as well. So if you wanted, you could do like $50K costs, $5K to hire a technician and driver to run them around. I would price the tests in Dubai at around $75 a piece. The cheapest test that you can get over here is $150 at the moment. And the deal is that I would give 50% affiliate revenue to fitness instructors to get their clients to get this done. Because right now there's a lot of friction to get this done. You literally have to go to a rheumatologist, book an appointment, get the scan done at a clinic. This one would be right outside the gym. You come in, it's done in 10 minutes. Max capacity, if you run full, is around 1,800 scans a month. If you do just 25% capacity, which is around 400 odd sort of like scans at $75, you're making 30 grand a month in top line revenue. Costs to run it would be $5,000 to do it. So that's like 25, let's say. And then I would give like 15K to the affiliates, and I would just make 10K. And then it would take us 5 months to get our money back and then just do this. And I'm seeing this craze in a lot of places with these machines and remote sort of like things. So it's quite interesting. And did you guys see this one where these guys are actually putting vending machines in clubs and bars, where it's a vending machine where you pay, I think, $2 for a spray of cologne. And it's basically a vending machine and it costs $2,500. They go to the brands and they say, can we get tester bottles? And then you do $2 per spray, and they've strategically put them. And these guys are also minting money with these. So it's like random weird ideas, but it just shows that you don't need to go too far also to make $1 million.
I love the vending machine concept. I mean, it doesn't get much more passive than that, aside from going and taking the money out. There was one episode in the MFM podcast, I think where they're talking about a female founder that kind of did the same thing with feminine care products across malls and universities and scaled that into like a $1 billion exit. So these, there's a lot of interesting, quote unquote, boring businesses out there that can make a lot of money.
One thing I wanted to add is my feeling, like this reminds me a lot of the scooter business. So I was talking with one of the big scooter company founders, and he was talking about the economics. And they were in lots of different Asian and Australian cities. And he was talking about like they're good cities, because the scooter is relatively cheap and they pay back in like 5 or 6 months. And then if you're good at like maintaining them, they have a life of like 5 or 6 years. So like the economics end up being better than like selling Coke. Like that, like that was like the metaphor he made. And I looked at the numbers, he was right. Like in a good city is like that. The problem was there were a lot of bad cities. And so like it really became like a real estate game, like a location game. And I have a feeling that's the game here too. It's like, what are the good locations? So that's where I really like that it can, you just like stick it on a vehicle. Like if the location doesn't work, like just go to a different one. Like, so I think that's going to be really key.
Yeah, I think the mobility makes a huge factor as well, because I don't think that the incumbents can compete with you because we don't have the fixed cost of their clinics or hospitals and all of that other stuff. And so I think like it makes it very, very difficult for incumbents to compete. And the only thing that I think, like if I play devil's advocate, would be that the government or health authorities in other jurisdictions may not be super open to having a DEXA machine roaming all over the place and stuff like that. And that could stop you. But other than that, I think like 3 machines and I was like, you make $1 million top line pretty easy. And I think like you can do that in a city as big as Dubai. So I hope someone actually goes ahead and does this, because I think like it doesn't take that much money to get started as well. Cool. All right, moving along. Thanks, like Matt. Idea number 2.
Okay. So idea number 2 is business that I saw in Texas outside of a mall, and I thought it was completely ridiculous, and a lawsuit waiting to happen. But then my 4-year-old wouldn't stop asking me to take him there. And it's this business, it's called DigWorld. And the more I thought about the business, the more I kind of loved it. So DigWorld is essentially, it's kind of like a lightweight Disneyland for construction machinery and excavation tools. Basically, it's kind of like an amusement park where kids can interact with heavy machinery. But the way that they like positioned the business, I thought was really unique. So the first thing about it was that it was located outside of a big mall. So basically in the parking lot of a big mall that's getting a ton of foot traffic. When we drive through with my son, he spots it and identifies it. So, your startup costs are, relatively low when you're working out of a parking lot. You have to, work out the lease, and, try to cover the basics of that. But then outside of that, you're looking at basically like 10 pieces of equipment, excavators, small bulldozers, things like that, which are depreciable assets. So there's, some tax benefits, and you can get, pretty good financing terms with those. And I think just it's an inherently viral product. And coming from like an e-commerce background and battling Facebook ads, like I'm really interested in what's like the viral coefficient for this thing. And I think people just taking pictures of their kids and, sharing it on social media, or even making comments along the lines like, hey, this isn't safe, should, push a lot of traffic to you.
Right. So when you say heavy machinery, are you really talking about like bulldozers or tractors or stuff like that they can move stuff with?
Yeah, so that's basically the appeal. I mean, it's set up and it's operated in a safe way, and there's actually even some like modifications that have been made to the machines to prevent certain actions from happening. But for more risky stuff, of course, you'll have staff that's sitting with the child and going through the process. But you don't want to make it like too small and too fake, because you want to give the impression, I guess, to the kid that he can drive a bulldozer.
Right. And was it expensive to get in, or like?
So in the US, the price was at $25 a person. So $100 for a family of 4. I think they're very consistently doing more than 100, especially on the weekends, 100 plus visitors a day. So depending on the financing terms of the space and the equipment, and insurance in the United States, I think it could very clearly be a very profitable business. Um, One thing that they did that I also thought was really interesting and could be expanded is basically partnering with the brands of these heavy equipment. So John Deere, Kubota, Caterpillar, because basically they're providing an inlet to the future users of tomorrow. And in some way, almost like establishing brand loyalty at the very beginning. So they get pretty great deals on the equipment itself.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So my immediate reaction is this sounds like a different twist on the carnival business model. And carnivals are everywhere, right? Like even in Bangkok, not too long ago, I did one. It was in the parking lot of a mall, and it's like big and colorful, and it attracts a lot of like viral moments. And so like a lot of the marketing is done for you because it's so visible. So I think that's great, and I think there's a lot of venues that like operate more at night. So there's venues where like the parking lot's empty just by default, the nature of the business, and you can get it really cheap. So I think like that's not a big issue. Like I am a little bit concerned about the legal side, when I saw the pictures. But I especially like that in like countries that are less litigious, like Asia. Like US would be worse because people like often try to find a way to like sue you. So that was the other thing. And then like I think like the weather does play a role. Like if you do that in Bangkok, like during the day, like you're gonna be empty at like 4 or 5 o'clock just because it's too hot. So that was my last thought.
Well, yeah, I like it. I think like all of these sort of like different ideas, and I think like that's one of the ones. I think for the last 2 episodes we've pretty gone heavy on the AI sort of like thing, but it just goes to show that there are also a ton of tangential ideas out there. And I think it comes down to what is it that, or how big you want to play as well in certain things. I think like a portfolio of these smaller sort of like businesses could be interesting as well. And people like Cody Sanchez has obviously made a big following around it, but I think there are just many ways to skin the cat. So yeah.
Last thought that I just had, I was remembering something. So like when you look at like Disney World and this place, like there's a lot of like teenagers stuff that operate roller coasters and stuff because the risk is relatively small because machinery doesn't have a lot of risk. I think one thing that's interesting about this, like it reminds me of this one Disney ride that I was on, Animal Kingdom, I think, decades ago. But it was like they drive you in this truck that is like this 4-wheel drive truck, and like it was pretty fast and it was up and down hills. And I was like, it was driving at like a pace that like I wasn't comfortable with. And I like when I finished and I got off and I saw some like 18-year-old kid, I was like, what? Like I was just like still alive. So I think like the staff, like making sure you have the right staff are going to be like a key to this one.
Yeah.
One wrong staff member, you're destroyed.
All right. Moving on to the last idea of the episode. Ken, do you want to take it away for idea number 4?
Yeah. So my last one is, I call it my AI SaaS tool recommender. And it is to solve my own itch. And I love that for me, it's like latent demand. Like I find myself doing this anyway, and I would be willing to pay for it. So like, cause there's nothing that I know. So the idea is like, I'm often looking for a certain tool on SaaS. Like I need something that does this. And like, if you just Google it, like you get some review sites, but it's like, it's not a very good like question that gets answered by search well. And so you ask people recommendations and stuff, but like what I end up doing in ChatGPT is I ask, hey, I'm looking for a tool where like I can do this and I can do this. Can you recommend me a tool? And it does it, but it does it really badly. So I really like that, like you can more or less use the existing models out there, but you just got to train it on your data set. And then I what I love about this model is just like the value of it, because this is just lead generation, right? Like everybody that does these searches is looking to pay for a SaaS tool. And you're just giving them a better way to do it. So that's kind of the idea.
Maybe think about like AppSumo initially, where you would go, they would tell you about all these cool sort of like new software tools. I'm amazed how much they've scaled that company, which clearly goes to show that there is a lot of affiliate revenue that one can make off this as well. if you can get a lot of people to onboard, especially with new tools, with lifetime deals and stuff like that. So I really like it because I think you could pull the data from everywhere, from Crunchbase or anywhere else where all these new tools are getting added. You could get someone to clean it. And then, like you said, you could provide a more structured input as to what it is that you're trying to do, and then see like across different price points as well as to, I don't want to spend more than $49 on this per month. And then it should sort of like give you stuff in that range or not.
One thing I just want to speak about, when I find myself doing this, sometimes the data that I think you would need is not even publicly available. Like it might be in the companies, you got to be logged in, and it's in the FAQ and stuff. Or maybe you got to even feed some of the data. Like, this is how this tool works. And someone you create that data. So I think the data part is also kind of been interesting. And I think that can create a moat. You make sure that you've got the right data so that this thing works well.
Well, what would be the query that you would put in? What would you need more data on? Because most websites have a lot of data on what the tool is supposed to do, right?
For example, say I'm looking for a replacement of ClickUp, and I'm like, all right. And you enter a prompt, I'm looking for a replacement of ClickUp that is cheaper. And all I really care about is that there's Kanbans and that there's an inbox and that, a couple of the basic functions that I use in ClickUp are there. I don't know, maybe that on ClickUp's case, maybe that information is in something you can just feed. But I have a feeling in a lot of cases, nobody really describes this basic stuff.
I think it's really interesting business. My head goes straight to the minutia of it. And I'm just thinking, man, I have to sign up to a lot of affiliate programs and they'll have different terms. And then I think, if that tool doesn't have an affiliate program yet, still give them, traffic and notoriety. I think it'll be a really fun business, irrespective of the revenue that comes out of it. Right now, I feel like I'm kind of just nerding out in this space already, and it's moving so fast. And the evidence is there with AppSumo, and even Product Hunt to an extent. So I think there's niches and opportunities here.
Have you guys checked out this website called Partner Stack? And they're pretty big as well. They're the full affiliate sort of thing. Partner Stack. And there's a site which I actually once saw on acquire.com called joinsecret.com. And what these guys have done is that they've gone and closed affiliate deals with all of these different providers, and now provide that as a white label to community owners. When you join a community and say, oh, we have $100,000 worth of free stuff for you when you sign up, actually, you can white label Join Secret and offer that for free. And I think it costs you something like $49 and $99 a month to offer that to your thing. And it's just an abstraction over their thing, white labeled with your stuff. So there's some really interesting plays on that side as just aggregating them. Then my concern would be for Ken's part, he's looking for probably niche tools as well that may not be so mainstream yet. And that would be the challenge.
Yeah, I know. I agree with all those points. And I thought a little bit about the affiliate side. I think that you're just going to have to give some people some free traffic. Kind of like Google Ads evolution. You serve them up the best result regardless. And then just you end up getting the best result to pay more and more over time, kind of thing.
Right. No, this was fun. I think covered 4 pretty disparate ideas, which is always fun because I think that helps us to see ideas from different angles and different opportunities. So, if maybe we should have a last closing question. Matt, out of all of these ideas, if you had to pick one, which one would you be more interested in sort of doing from a economic standpoint versus which one do you think gets to $1 million?
Think of the ideas. I like your equipment scanning technology solution, probably the best. In terms of what I want to see, I'm biased towards interacting with history better. But yeah, I think you got the the financial side.
Yeah. So that's cool. Ken, what about you? You want to see your AI idea, so hopefully someone's going to build it for you.
I think it can work. I think it'll be challenging. Like I think the quickest path to money is what you said. And I heard that idea on a podcast too. And I was like, oh wow, like if this DEXA thing is like big in Asia, like it's a no-brainer. Just buy one, test it out. So I think like in terms of path to money, like where would I invest? It would be that one. Like where do I think that if you're willing to really commit some years to this problem, then I think the AI thing could be interesting.
All right, cool. Well, that's a wrap for episode number 3. And please let us know in the comments how you like this episode with getting guests on. Should we bring guests on more? Ken and I are thinking about sort of like increasing the frequency also of doing some of these podcasts. The goal really is to do 10 of these episodes and then sort of like see where the chips fall, and then we'll take it from there. So 3 down, 7 to go, Ken.